Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're plunging into a question that's, well, as old as conscious thought itself. How do we truly understand the world around us?
Hmm.
Is it this rock-solid, unchanging thing, built on fixed principles? Or is everything always shifting?
Hmm.
In a perpetual dynamic state of change, a constant flow?
It's a huge question, and it's one that has puzzled thinkers for millennia.
Absolutely. And what's amazing is that some of the very first philosophers in the West, way back, were wrestling with these exact ideas, and in ways that might just, well, completely reshape how you see reality.
Indeed. And this isn't just some abstract academic puzzle, is it?
Not all.
It's fundamental. It forces us to question our most basic assumptions about, well, everything. Existence, identity, the very nature of truth itself.
Right.
And as we'll unpack today, the ancient Greeks, specifically one really enigmatic and, let's be honest, often misunderstood figure, laid some incredibly provocative groundwork. Ideas that still resonate today with striking relevance.
Okay, so for this deep dive, we're zeroing in on one of the most profound and, yeah, maybe a bit mysterious pre-Socratic philosophers, Heraclitus of Ephesus.
Ah, Heraclitus, the obscure they called him later.
Exactly. And we've gathered a rich collection of scholarly excerpts, academic articles, historical analyses, interpretations of his actual surviving fragments to explore his core ideas, his context, and the incredible, often tricky legacy he left behind. Think of this as your unique shortcut to really grasping what can feel like incredibly dense ancient philosophy. We want to make it accessible, insightful.
Yeah, our mission today is really to pull out the most potent insights from Heraclitus, those genuine aha moments, the ones that make you pause and really rethink your own perceptions.
Right.
And those surprisingly relevant ideas that, even though they're over 2,000 years old, still offer a powerful lens for looking at today's world. You'll leave this deep dive feeling genuinely well-informed about someone who, yeah, he was kind of a solitary voice back then, but he profoundly shaped Western thought. Still challenges us.
So get ready for some truly surprising facts, some deep insights, and definitely a few mind-bending paradoxes. We're going to unpack core concepts like his famous idea, everything flows. Panta rhei, exactly. We'll explore the fundamental role he saw for fire, this animating principle of the cosmos, and dive into the really radical idea that conflict, strife itself, isn't just chaos, but maybe a vital, even necessary form of harmony underneath it all.
It's fascinating stuff. Let's get into it.
Okay, so to really get a handle on Heraclitus and, frankly, appreciate just how radical his thought was, we first need to set the stage of it. How do we today even look back at ancient Greece?
That's a really important starting point.
Because it turns out there are, well, two pretty distinct ways people approach that history. And understanding them is crucial for how we interpret someone like Heraclitus.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, because since the Renaissance, maybe even before, there's been this prevailing view, almost an idealization of the ancient Greeks.
Right, the Golden Age idea.
Yeah, exactly. Many see them as these sort of superhuman geniuses, the original inventors of everything important: democracy, philosophy, science. And there's this underlying belief that their authority underpins our own modern belief in progress. It's almost like we assume they were always right, their wisdom seen as this flawless blueprint.
I see that perspective everywhere, this kind of reverence for them.
Yeah.
But then, as you said, there's a more skeptical, maybe more nuanced counterview.
Right. And this view, it acknowledges their brilliance, obviously, their foundational contributions, but it also admits that, well, maybe many Greek ideas are now best forgotten.
Ouch.
Or perhaps just partly right and partly wrong. It's a perspective that really emphasizes the need to get into the details, the nitty-gritty of their thought, rather than just admiring them from a distance like statues in a museum.
That makes sense. Less hero worship, more critical engagement.
Precisely. And this distinction is absolutely vital, because it sets the tone for how we should approach ancient philosophy. Not with this kind of blind reverence, treating everything they said as infallible dogma.
Right.
But instead, with a spirit of critical inquiry. This lets us figure out what truly endures, what offers permanent value from their abstract thought, those deep insights and intellectual tools that are still useful today, even if the context has changed completely. It helps us avoid that superstitious reverence,
Yeah, treating them like oracles instead of thinkers.
Exactly. And instead, we can engage critically to extract their lasting power, their genuine contribution, without feeling we have to accept the whole package uncritically.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. It allows for both appreciation and intellectual rigor. And speaking of permanent value, it's interesting how this critical approach applies to philosophical progress itself. What did the Greeks really give us beyond specific ideas?
Well, what's really insightful here is understanding that progress in metaphysics, maybe like progress in science, isn't about finding these static final answers set in stone.
Okay.
Instead, it's described in our sources as a gradual refinement of all these hypotheses, a development of their implications, and a reformulation of each to meet the objections urged by adherents of rival hypotheses.
It's more like an ongoing conversation, a debate across centuries.
Exactly. It highlights philosophy as this constantly evolving field, a dynamic conversation, not just a fixed set of dogmas to memorize. It's about the intellectual process itself, the testing, the arguing, the refining.
That's a great point. It's the journey, not just the destination. And the Greeks specifically gave us something truly revolutionary that proved of, as the sources say, more permanent value to abstract thought than maybe anything else. What was that huge gift?
Well, their monumental contribution wasn't just, say, democracy or specific philosophies. It was discovering mathematics and, crucially, the art of deductive reasoning, most famously captured in geometry.
Ah, logic and proof.
Think about it. Before this, a lot of knowledge was based on observation, tradition, maybe even mystical insight. But with deductive reasoning, you could start from a few basic truths, axioms, like in geometry, and logically derive completely new, certain conclusions.
That's a game changer.
Totally revolutionary, because it gave abstract thought an independent life and growth. Philosophers could build complex systems, prove theories, explore ideas almost independently of just looking at the world. It was this powerful new tool letting abstract ideas flourish and build on each other for over 2,000 years. A whole new way of thinking.
So when we place Heraclitus in this context, this incredibly vibrant intellectual scene, we see he was part of this tradition of deep thinking. But our sources also say he had a different temper of mind. He was Ionian, like Thales and Anaximenes before him, but clearly a unique voice.
Oh, absolutely right. He stands out quite a bit. And this brings us back to why we need to approach ancient thought with that critical attitude, but never contempt.
Right. Don't just dismiss ideas because they're old or seem strange now.
Exactly. It's about trying to understand what it feels like to believe in his theories. Trying to get inside the state of mind of a person abandoning opinions which he has hitherto held. Understand the intellectual struggle, the leap, the logic that got them there.
So it requires a kind of empathy, intellectual empathy.
Yeah, I think so. It fosters a deeper engagement, letting us grasp the real ingenuity, even in ideas we might not fully buy today, and appreciate how revolutionary they were back then.
And Heraclitus definitely gives us plenty to engage with. Given his very distinct views and that critical stance, it's clear he wasn't just following the crowd. So let's step back. Who was Heraclitus, this thinker with the different temper of mind?
Okay, so Heraclitus. He flourished around 500 BC. He was an aristocratic citizen of Ephesus, which was a major Greek city in Ionia, modern-day Turkey.
Right.
And he's most famously known, as you mentioned, for his doctrine that everything is in a state of flux. We'll definitely dive deep into that. But first, it helps understand the kind of person he seems to have been, because his personality definitely colors his philosophy.
Everything in a state of flux. Yeah, that's the big one. But it sounds like he was quite the individual, not just slotting into existing schools of thought.
Anything but typical. Our sources paint him as this fiercely independent thinker, someone explicitly opposed to the mystical tendencies of Pythagoras and others who were quite popular then.
So not joining the Pythagorean Brotherhood then?
Definitely not. He wasn't interested in forming a school or gathering disciples, it seems. He preferred working in, well, maybe intellectual isolation, carving out his own unique path based on his own vision. This independence meant he wasn't really swayed by popular opinion or the philosophical trends of the day.
And his personality? Well, our sources suggest it was pretty striking. Maybe not in a warm, cuddly way.
Yeah.
He wasn't exactly known for loving humanity, was he? He got that nickname, the Weeping Philosopher, apparently out of contempt, not sadness.
No, not warm and fuzzy at all. He seems to have had this notable, almost disdainful contempt for mankind.
Wow.
He apparently believed that force will compel them to act for their own good, which is a pretty authoritarian view, right?
Yeah, suggesting people are too ignorant to know what's good for them.
Pretty much. Too ignorant or too stubborn, needing external compulsion. And there's that really stark line attributed to him: every beast is driven to the pasture with blows.
Ooh, that paints a picture.
It really does. A severe, uncompromising figure, convinced of his own superior insight and not afraid to show disdain for anyone who didn't get it or who just didn't bother to look deeper.
Okay, so definitely someone who wouldn't suffer fools gladly. This unflinching, maybe even harsh view of humanity must color his overall philosophy. And that brings us to one of his most complex, maybe most profound concepts.
The logos.
The logos.
What exactly did Heraclitus mean by this logos, this unseen truth he saw governing everything?
Well, the logos, for Heraclitus,
Yeah.
it wasn't just a physical law, like, say, gravity. You should imagine it more as the fundamental underlying reason and structure of reality itself.
Like a cosmic blueprint. Sort of, yeah. An unseen blueprint, an inherent cosmic intelligence that orchestrates all the constant flux we see. But crucially, he called it the certain truth there is no man who knows.
Okay, so it's not obvious.
Right. It suggests it operates at a level beyond our ordinary senses, maybe even beyond conventional human logic. It's not something you can just, look at and measure easily or deduce in a simple argument. It requires a deeper kind of seeing.
So not just a scientific law, but something deeper, maybe almost divine, permeating everything. And you can't just read about it. You need a different kind of understanding.
Precisely. He saw the logos manifesting in ways that suggest a more symbolic understanding of reality is needed. Not just literal. He famously said, "The Lord who is the oracle of Delphi neither utters nor hides his meaning, but shows it by a sign."
Like the oracle giving riddles, not direct answers.
Exactly. It implies that ultimate truth isn't always direct or obvious. It's revealed through patterns, through the dynamic interplay of forces, through a kind of cosmic symbolism that needs interpretation. You need a kind of intuitive grasp, a deeper way of seeing to really get it. It's the hidden unifying principle that makes sense of the apparent chaos.
And this ties right into his view of humanity's limitations, doesn't it?
Yeah.
His rather dim view of our capacity to truly grasp this divine order.
Yeah.
He really emphasizes the gap between us and, well, God or the logos.
He absolutely does. Starkly contrasted human understanding with divine wisdom. He said, God, no doubt, is the embodiment of cosmic justice. Okay, fair enough.
What then?
But then he adds, man is a baby by God, even as a child by a man. And maybe the most cutting one, the wisest man is an ape compared to God.
Wow, an ape.
Yeah. It underscores this vast, almost unbridgeable gap between the divine order and how humans perceive things. It really stresses the profound humility needed for true wisdom, a humility Heraclitus perhaps felt was seriously lacking in most people around him.
You can really feel that contempt for mankind coming through there. And it seems he wasn't afraid to criticize anyone he felt wasn't truly seeking wisdom. That includes popular religion, even the most revered cultural figures of his day. He sounds like a real iconoclast.
That's a huge part of who he was intellectually. He was, in a way, a kind of religious reformer.
Really? How so?
Well, he openly slammed traditional religion and popular cult practices. He rejected what he called unholy mysteries and dismissed nightwalkers, magicians, priests of Bacchus, and priestesses of the wine vat.
So the popular mystery cults and rituals.
He saw them as superficial, even dangerously misguided. He suggested people tried to purify themselves by defiling themselves with blood. A really harsh critique, implying their rituals were rooted in ignorance and self-deception, not genuine insight into the logos.
So he wasn't just a philosopher thinking abstract thoughts. He was a social and spiritual critic, challenging the very core beliefs of his society. And it didn't stop with religion, right? He even took aim at Homer and Hesiod.
Indeed. He didn't spare the big guns. Homer and Hesiod, the absolute bedrock of Greek culture, education, identity. He believed they should be scourged.
Scourged. Like physically whipped.
That's the implication. An incredibly provocative thing to say back then. He found major fault with how they portrayed the gods and heroes, especially what he saw as their impieties. He thought their stories fundamentally misunderstood the true nature of the divine and the cosmic order.
That shows incredible conviction. He was really committed to his vision of truth above all else.
Absolutely. Above common narratives, accepted authorities, no matter how beloved they were.
And did this critical eye extend to other philosophers too? Was he challenging his peers as well?
He certainly seems to have. Our sources mention his condemnations of figures like Tutamnus, who he apparently felt got too much credit or represented a kind of superficial understanding. It just reinforces this picture of him on his own independent, often solitary path. He wasn't looking for allies or joining schools. He was forging his own philosophical territory based on his unique vision of the logos and the universe, and wasn't afraid to challenge anyone he thought missed the real, underlying truth of things.
Okay, so we've got this vivid picture now.
Yeah.
Heraclitus, the aristocrat, fiercely independent, maybe a bit misanthropic, definitely uncompromising. And it's exactly this intellect that let him articulate his most iconic contribution. This idea, so radical it reshaped Western thought. We're talking about the philosophy of flux. Everything flows.
Pantarei, yes. This is where we really get to the core of his worldview.
And it gets really interesting.
This is truly his most iconic legacy, and it's crucial to grasp its depth. Pantarei, everything flows, encapsulates his belief that everything is in a state of flux. And he uses that incredibly vivid illustration.
The river.
The river. You cannot step twice into the same river, for fresh waters are ever flowing upon you.
That image is just so powerful. It's not just that the water is moving, but the river itself as a thing is constantly becoming something new, and maybe even you stepping into it. You're changing too from moment to moment.
Exactly. That's the depth of it. This isn't just about superficial movement, things changing place. Heraclitus is saying the very being, the identity of things, is intrinsically tied to this continuous flow.
So the river isn't a fixed bed with water running through.
No, nature is the process of flowing. Its identity is its continuous becoming. And he reinforces this with another great quote, "The sun is new every day." Again, not just poetry. It illustrates that even things that seem stable, permanent, like the sun rising each morning, are actually in perpetual transformation. Every moment is genuinely new, a fresh iteration.
So it's not just about things moving around, but their very essence, their identity is the process itself, not some static core underneath.
That's the radical part. For Heraclitus, there's no true static being, only continuous becoming. This was totally counterintuitive, challenging the common sense idea that things have a fixed, unchanging essence. It implies stability is just a snapshot of an endless process.
Which must have really shaken things up. And it leads directly to his idea of fire as the primary element, right? He wasn't the first Ionian to look for a fundamental substance, but fire.
Yeah.
That's a potent choice for a philosophy of flux.
Indeed. He follows in the tradition of Thales choosing water, or Anaximenes choosing air. But Heraclitus champions fire as the arch, the fundamental principle, and for reasons that fit perfectly with his philosophy of flux.
So why fire? What's so special about it compared to water or air? That made it right for his view.
Well, think about fire. It's incredibly dynamic, isn't it?
Yeah, always moving, changing.
Exactly. Unlike static elements, it's constantly changing, consuming, giving off light, heat. Yet it maintains its form, a flame, while doing so. It destroys, yes, but it also purifies and transforms.
Oh.
And Heraclitus says, the world was, ever is, and ever shall be an ever-living fire, a thing continually changing, and its permanence is rather that of a process than that of a substance. That's the key.
Permanence as process, not substance.
Right. Fire embodies both constant change and a kind of enduring active process. It is continuous flux, but it's also eternally itself in its changing.
So it's not just stuff like water or earth. It's an active energy, a process underlying everything. And he saw the whole cosmos as undergoing transformations driven by this fire, like a cosmic alchemist.
Absolutely. He described these grand cosmic transformations. The transformations of fire are, first of all, sea, and half of the sea is earth, half whirlwind. It's this majestic, continuous cosmic cycle. Fire morphs into everything else, drives all reality, yet it maintains its essential nature as change itself, a universe in constant fiery metamorphosis.
Wow. And he also linked this to a kind of cosmic justice, didn't he? Almost like a universal economy, everything in constant exchange, balanced by fire.
Yes, that's a brilliant part of it. He said all things are in exchange for fire, and fire for all things, even as wares for gold and gold for wares.
Like fire is the universal currency.
Exactly. It illustrates this dynamic, balanced exchange. Everything constantly transforming and being transformed, with fire as the ultimate medium and measure. It implies a kind of inherent justice, a cosmic balance maintained through this perpetual becoming and exchanging, equilibrium through give and take.
Okay, so if everything flows and fire is the ultimate reality, the big implication is there's no real stillness. No fixed being, only becoming, every moment genuinely new, even as it flows from the last.
Precisely. No true static being, only continuous becoming. Even permanence is found in the process itself, in the enduring nature of the change. And this was, as you said, radically challenging for his time. It goes against our deep human desire for stable foundations.
Yeah, we like things to stay put.
We do. And this really sets the stage for those huge later philosophical debates, especially with Parmenides, who took the exact opposite view.
Right, the being versus becoming debate. We'll come back to Parmenides. But first, let's dig into another core Heraclitean paradox, the harmony of opposites. He finds unity within conflict, not despite it.
This is maybe one of his most profound and counterintuitive ideas. Heraclitus believed there is unity in the world, but it is a unity formed by the combination of opposites.
Unity from opposites.
Yeah, he said, all things come out of the one, and the one out of all things. It means things that seem contradictory, like hot and cold, life and death aren't just separate warring forces. They're inherently interdependent. They need each other, define each other, and contribute to a larger, unified whole through their tension.
That's mind-bending. It goes against our usual logic. A cannot be not A. Can you give us some examples you use to illustrate this? How unity emerges from tension?
One really powerful one is about life and death. Mortals and immortals are mortals, the one living the other's death and dying the other's life.
Unpack that a bit.
It highlights the cyclical nature of existence. One state transitions into the other, completely dependent on its opposite. Our life is defined, in part, by the fact that it ends. Death gives meaning and urgency to life. They aren't just separate endpoints, but interconnected parts of one single process.
Okay, I see. They define each other.
Yeah.
And the famous analogy of the bow and the lyre, that one really clicks for me. It captures how conflict can actually be constructive.
Yes, it's such a perfect and enduring metaphor. Heraclitus explained how what is at variance agrees with itself, using the analogy of the attunement of opposite tensions, like in a bow or a lyre.
Right.
Think about it. A bow only works because of the tension, right? The string pulling in, the wood pushing out, opposing forces.
Yeah, otherwise it's just a bent stick and a loose string.
Exactly. And a lyre only makes music because the strings are held taut under tension. The tension, the strife between these opposing forces, is precisely what creates the harmony, the music, the function, the purpose. He literally said, strife combines to produce emotion, which is a harmony.
Wow. So without the tension, there's no function, no beauty, just slackness.
Precisely. Conflict isn't just destructive, it's constructive, even necessary for certain kinds of order or function or beauty. It's the engine of dynamism, even if it feels tense or uncomfortable.
And he applied this everywhere, right? Not just physical things, but everyday concepts, too.
Absolutely. He gave loads of examples showing how perceived dualities are actually unified. Good and ill are one. The way up and the way down is one and the same.
The same road, just different directions.
Exactly. He saw day and night, winter and summer, war and peace, surfeit and hunger, all these opposites as just named various shapes of a single underlying reality. They aren't separate warring factions, but integrated parts of one dynamic process. The world, for Heraclitus, simply requires opposites to combine to even exist and function harmoniously, albeit tensely.
Which leads us to arguably his most provocative, maybe most misunderstood statement. War is common to all, and strife is justice.
Yes. That one definitely raises eyebrows.
It sounds incredibly harsh, like he's advocating for constant conflict. But in the context of this harmony of opposites, it takes on a very different, deeper meaning, doesn't it?
It really does. You have to read it through that lens. If strife is justice, it implies conflict isn't just some negative thing to be avoided at all costs. It might be the very mechanism through which the cosmic order maintains itself.
How so?
It's how things come into being, how they find their balance, how they define themselves against their opposites. For Heraclitus, this wasn't chaos. It was the inherent dynamic structure of reality itself. Conflict or strife isn't an aberration, it's the natural state, constantly pushing and pulling, creating the conditions for existence and change. It's through this eternal struggle, this tension, that equilibrium is somehow achieved.
So the universe isn't meant to be static or peaceful in a passive way. It's supposed to be in dynamic tension. That tension is the order. It is the justice. Wow. That's a fundamentally different way to see the world.
It really is.
And it must have profound implications for how you should live your life, right? How do you navigate a world defined by flux and strife, according to Heraclitus? Which brings us to his ethics, his pursuit of wisdom.
Yes, his ethics are definitely tied into his metaphysics. He had strong views on how one should live wisely within this dynamic cosmos. He believed that the dry soul is the wisest and best.
The dry soul. What does that mean? Not literally dry, I assume.
No, not literally. It represents a soul free from excess moisture, meaning free from being clouded by excessive emotion, indulgence, worldly attachments. It's a state of clarity, intellectual control, self-awareness. A dry soul can perceive the deeper logos that governs everything.
So wisdom is linked to internal discipline. Austerity, almost.
Yeah.
Mastering your inner world, not just knowing stuff.
Exactly. He contrasts the dry soul with the moist soul, which he associated with things like drunkenness, sensory indulgence, losing control. He said, "It is pleasure to souls to become moist."
Pleasure to become moist. That sounds odd.
Well, think of it as the pleasure of letting go, of indulgence. But he saw it as debilitating. He painted this vivid, rather cutting picture. A man, when he gets drunk, is led by a beardless lad tripping.
Led astray, stumbling.
Right, so it's a very concrete ethical recommendation. Master your impulses, your passions, your desires. That leads to wisdom and aligning with the cosmic order. Indulgence, becoming moist, leads to losing self-control and being unable to perceive truth clearly.
That's surprisingly practical advice from someone whose ideas often feel so abstract. So self-mastery, internal discipline were paramount for him. That's the path to living wisely in a world of flux.
He certainly valued that. He values power obtained through self-mastery and despises the passions that distract men from their central ambitions. It fits perfectly with the dry soul idea. Internal discipline is key to wisdom and living well. True strength for him wasn't external power, but governing yourself, keeping your soul dry and clear, able to see the logos.
And that puts a huge amount of responsibility on the individual, doesn't it? It's not about following external rules or relying on gods or popular opinion. It's about your own choices, your actions, your inner state.
Absolutely. It places the burden of wisdom and goodness squarely on the individual. There's a strong sense of personal accountability. And this does tie back to his rather, well, uncharitable view of mankind in general, especially those he saw as lost in their moist souls.
Which, as we heard, was pretty dim. That contempt for mankind, particularly for those who didn't grasp the logos or think critically. He didn't seem to have much faith in the average person's ability to achieve wisdom.
No, it seems not. His belief that only force will compel them to act for their own good reflects that severe, maybe aristocratic view. It implies true wisdom is rare, not easily attained or widely embraced, and that most people need external pressure, maybe even coercion, to align with the cosmic order, even for their own benefit.
It's a stark reminder of his uncompromising nature. He really believed only a few could truly grasp these profound truths.
It seems that way.
Okay, so Heraclitus, a towering figure, maybe difficult, definitely revolutionary for his time. But his legacy is complicated, isn't it? Precisely because his ideas were so radical, they often got misunderstood, even by later philosophical giants. And these misunderstandings really shaped Western philosophy.
Yeah, it's fascinating how that played out. His core doctrine of perpetual flux was famously, maybe fundamentally misinterpreted by Plato and Aristotle.
The big two. How did they get him wrong?
Well, they seem to understand him as saying, nothing ever is, everything is becoming. That's Plato's take. And Aristotle interpreted him as saying, nothing steadfastly is. Essentially, they took his idea of constant change to mean there's absolutely no stable reality, no basis for certain knowledge at all, just chaos.
Which sounds like a recipe for skepticism, or nihilism even.
Exactly. And this wasn't just some minor academic disagreement. It had a monumental impact.
How so?
This misunderstanding led philosophers like Plato to feel they absolutely had to refute Heraclitus. Plato's whole theory of the unchanging, eternal forms. That was developed in large part to provide a stable foundation for knowledge, something he thought Heraclitus's flux completely denied.
Ah, so Plato's forms were a direct answer to what he thought Heraclitus was saying.
Arguably, yes. It set up this foundational debate in Western philosophy. Change versus permanence, appearance versus reality. A debate that echoes down to today, largely kicked off by this initial, perhaps mistaken, reading of Heraclitus.
So why did brilliant minds like Plato and Aristotle misunderstand him so profoundly? Was just his cryptic style, his obscurity, or something deeper?
That's a great question. It was likely a mix of things. His own cryptic style, the Lord, shows it by a sign, definitely didn't help. He earned that nickname, the Obscure, for a reason. But maybe the main issue was that later thinkers focused too much on the flux part, constant change, without fully grasping the balancing concepts, like the ever-living fire, providing a kind of process permanence, or, crucially, the unity of opposites, creating order within the change.
So they saw the chaos but missed the underlying structure.
It seems like it. They saw the swirling waters but missed the enduring riverbed, the pattern that holds even as the specifics change. They struggle to reconcile constant change with any kind of enduring truth or stability.
That's such a crucial distinction. Which brings us back to Heraclitus' true idea of eternity. It wasn't static, was it? Not some fixed point outside time.
No, not at all, like Plato's forms, for instance. His idea of eternity wasn't a static, unchanging state. It was the ever-living fire, where its permanence is rather that of a process than that of a substance.
Process, not substance. There it is again.
Exactly. For Heraclitus, eternity wasn't about escaping time or change. It was the ceaseless, ongoing process of transformation itself. The permanence lies in the pattern of change, the continuous becoming, the eternal cycle governed by the logos.
So he's radically challenging our usual notion of eternity as something fixed, immutable. For him, eternity is time, in its perpetual flow and renewal, a dynamic endurance, not a static one.
Precisely, a deeply dynamic view. Stability found in the rhythm and pattern of change. And this is where that sharp contrast with Parmenides comes in again.
Right, Parmenides argued for unchanging being.
Exactly. He argued for a single, unchanging, eternal being, directly refuting Heraclitus by essentially denying that change was even possible at a fundamental level. This huge philosophical divide, being versus becoming, really set the agenda for so much of Western philosophy. As our sources note, philosophers have often tried to revive hopes that science seemed to have killed by searching for some kind of unchanging bedrock, a quest made urgent by Heraclitus's radical claims about flux.
It's fascinating how Heraclitus's ideas, even if not always directly credited, keep popping up or resonating in modern thought. His insights feel surprisingly current sometimes.
They really do. And while we're cautious about claiming direct influence everywhere, his core concepts, dynamic processes, interconnectedness, the unity of opposites, you can see conceptual parallels pop up all over.
And if where?
Well, think about systems theory, how complex systems maintain their identity through constant interaction and flow, adapting and changing. Or ecology, with its focus on the dynamic balance of ecosystems, constant change being part of stability.
Yeah.
Even, some might argue, in certain interpretations of quantum physics, where reality at the smallest scale seems to be about probabilities, interactions, processes, rather than fixed little balls. His thought forces us to embrace paradox, to find order within apparent chaos, to see stability as dynamic equilibrium. And that's a skill that feels incredibly relevant for navigating our complex world today, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Looking beyond simple answers, embracing the flow. Okay, so to wrap this up, we've really taken a deep dive into Heraclitus's world. A world defined by constant change, by the energy of fire, and by a strange kind of harmony emerging from conflict itself.
We certainly have. We've unpacked his central ideas. That universal flux, Pantarei, fire is the animating principle, ensuring a dynamic kind of permanence, and that profound paradoxical unity found within opposites, where strife isn't chaos, but maybe cosmic justice, part of the order.
And understanding Heraclitus, I really think, offers you, our listener, a powerful lens, a way to look at your own experiences of change, of conflict, of searching for patterns in a world that often feels just, well, chaotic. It's a shortcut to being genuinely well-informed about thinking about the very nature of reality, not just about some obscure ancient philosopher.
It encourages a more dynamic, maybe more integrated way of seeing things, recognizing the deeper patterns beneath the surface noise.
So here's a final thought for you to take away and ponder. If Heraclitus truly believed that war is common to all and strife is justice, what does peace actually mean in his worldview?
Good question.
Is it just a temporary lull, a pause in the cosmic struggle before the next tension inevitably arises? Or could peace itself be understood differently, maybe as an inherent dynamic balance that exists within that eternal tension? A kind of equilibrium achieved through the constant interplay of opposites, not despite it.
That's a lot to chew on.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Consider how understanding Heraclitus, really grappling with his ideas, might change how you perceive the inevitable changes and conflicts in your own life. Maybe you can find purpose or even a strange kind of harmony right there within them.
A profound question indeed, fitting for a thinker who, despite the millennia, still has so much to teach us.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.